Hi. So today I wanted to talk about the mind again, and in particular, I wanted to talk about a couple of verses from a particular text. So it's a text by Khenpo Tsultrim Gyamtso, and it's the stages of view of definitive meaning. So really, it's a teaching about it's sort of guiding us towards reflections on emptiness. So there's a lot in there, and they're verses that I contemplate quite a lot. I don't say that I've penetrated to the depth of them, but anyway, that's what I do sometimes, is at least reflect on them and meditate on them, really. Let them really sink in. Which reminds me of a verse by the third Zen patriarch that says something like, "Stop talking and thinking, and there is nothing that you will not be able to know." I think that there's a lot of truth in that. I think we can imagine that if we think things through, we're going to really understand them. But sometimes we just have to let things sink in. We have to feed ourselves with very little words, and then allow them to really penetrate into the depths of ourselves by leaving them alone. I know that sounds paradoxical in a way, but leave them alone to do their work. So anyway, back to these verses. So the first one is, in a dream, from the body's perspective, there is no difference between being shot with an arrow or showered with flowers. However, from the mind's perspective, there is a difference. Therefore, all happiness and suffering should be known as only mind. So I'll repeat that one. In a dream, from the body's perspective, there is no difference between being shot with an arrow or showered with flowers. However, from the mind's perspective, there is a difference. Therefore, all happiness and suffering should be known as only mind. So it's the work of the mind that gives us happiness or unhappiness. And it's very hard for us to believe that, because we have a deep belief that if only everything were right on the outside, that we would be happy. If we had the right partner, the right house, yes, the right material goods in all sorts of ways, the right job, then we'd be happy. But of course, it's what we do with our mind. And I was talking yesterday about Milarepa, and talking about how little he had, what a simple life he had living in the mountains, and he was extremely happy. So it is possible to be happy with very, very little. So it's our attachments, it's our craving, we know that causes our unhappiness. And as it says in this verse, things happen in a dream, and we believe they can give us great suffering because we believe in them. So the verse that follows is even more mysterious, really. So it says, in a dream, even though object and consciousness are not sequential, we mistakenly believe that the object exists before we perceived it. Similarly, all objects and consciousness arise simultaneously. Therefore, all phenomena are asserted to be only mind. So everything arises together. Our eye makes contact with an object, and we believe that that object already exists, whether we saw it or not. So that is very mysterious. So the way that I understand that, to some extent anyway, there's many ways in a way that object doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because it's not permanent. It has a relative reality, we could say. But there's more to it than that, because also as soon as we open our eyes and look at anything, we interpret it, we have views about it. It's not neutral, we could say. We imply all sorts of things about what we see. So what we imply about anything we see is not necessarily what other people imply about that same object. And by object, I mean people, I mean anything in the phenomenal world. So everything in the world is interpreted by all of us beings, that view, that object, that person, or that thing. And that means that the reality that we believe in does not exist. It doesn't exist because it's our own. It comes from a particular perspective. So all that sounds a bit abstract. So how is this relevant to our life? Well, it's relevant if we can really start looking into the interpretations and the views and the opinions that we have about everything. Because it teaches us that they only have a relative reality. They have a very partial reality, the reality that we are imposing on them. And knowing that can give a very much lighter feel to our interpretation of the world. We can start having a sense of humour about what we believe and about how we see the world. We can start recognising that it's not as we perceive it, that all we have is a very limited perspective. And this is very important for understanding the unreality of ourself, the unreality of our thoughts, because our thoughts have no, well, not just ultimate existence, they really have no value. They don't have the value that we put on them. So the value that we put on our own thoughts, they have a solidity, they have a strength, they have a loud voice that they don't warrant. And if we can really see that, we can have a much lighter attitude, to our beliefs and our opinions and our values. We can hold ourselves much more lightly. So I was going to say something about simplicity, and I've wandered rather far from that. So what I'm talking about really is relaxing with a sense of humour into a spaciousness that doesn't take ourselves so blooming seriously. You know, that doesn't believe that we have some ultimate reality in our view of the world. So if we can hold that lightly, we'll just be so much more content, so much happier. Our view will be so much broader. I think that's all I'm going to say today. See you tomorrow.